so real. And most people, majority of people never follow up on it. You know, something will happen and they'll just go, oh, that's interesting. So she said, you need to go to this luncheon. I can't be there, she said. She said, go online, get you a ticket. So, okay, there's IRC, Integrity Resource. And so I get a ticket, go to the luncheon, Marriott, and they put me on table 12. So I sat down, it said Spectrum. I don't even know the word Spectrum. So I sat there a little bit, and this guy comes and sits down next to me and introduces himself as Dave Peters, and Spectrum, it's his company. Okay. And then the guy next to me introduced himself, and then the program started. And so I had to leave right afterwards. So I just mentioned that to Dave Fisher, who, by the way, is speaking at some group today. Are you going to that one?
I'm not.
Okay, he's speaking somewhere. He said, well, I kind of know that guy, Dave Peters. Let's go have lunch with him. Has anybody ever eaten at Maggie's Lunchbox? Not very many people up here. So anyhow, I sat there for an hour and a half asking him questions and saying, I can't believe this. This is too good to be true. There's something wrong here. And so finally I said, would you come and speak at one of my, at that time we just had a little group at First State Bank in Churchville. Would you come and speak to that group? Sure, I'd be glad to. Really? I said, how about one of my Eagle Summits? At that time we were playing in Chicago. He said, yeah, I'll be there. I thought, oh my gosh, something's wrong. So we became friends, all these things going on. So Friday we had lunch at Maggie's Lunchbox, and he's telling some things. I said, I want you to share this, because he has to leave after a while to go to
I do.
some luncheon, right?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with you, Tina, but he's going to leave. He needs to go. So highlight just a little bit of your background.
So I grew up just south of the Andes Mountains in Colombia. A small kid in Ohio. My parents in the early 70s ended up moving to Colombia, South America, and I was there from 7 till 17, and then came back to the States at 17, and then ended up
Had a lot of money, full-time job.
not at that point, no. Had a couple rough years, kind of making a transition back to the States, and then ended up going to college and met my wife in college. She's from St. Louis, and so she drugged me here. I'd actually done a lot of hitchhiking, and I'd been through St. Louis a couple years earlier, and
In July.
in July, it was 95 degrees. I was standing down by the arch with my thumb up trying to get a ride. And it was probably at least 85% humidity. And I just remember saying to myself, I don't know who would ever live here. Ever live here. I mean, it's just horrible. Of course, I'm in the sun, you know, at that point. And here I've been here 32 years now.
And you married up.
Pretty much. Pretty much. You know, I had the art of manipulation down, and so I got the best girl I could have ever gotten.
70% of you men married up. 10% married down, the other 20% is kind of even. I mean, I'm serious about that. I've studied that a little bit. You married up as I did. So you got into a lot of business, you got real estate, you got some commercial property, right, in San Diego? What kind of property you have?
So just commercial buildings, office buildings, things like that.
One year of college with Bob Jones in Greenville, wasn't it?
So that's actually where I went to that school for 1 year of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had an impact on you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It had a great impact on me.
Yeah.
I got up with a bell, went to bed with a bell. It was kind of military style, but it set patterns in my life.
They almost acted like they liked you, didn't they?
They basically took care of me. You know, I was a kid that had some issues, and they kind of loved me into submission and surrounded me and really did a lot to help my life.
You have 2 daughters.
I do. I've got a 28-year-old daughter that's a local lawyer. She has 3 children, lives in Fenton, Missouri. And then I have my youngest daughter's married, and she lives in Dallas, and she's a licensed professional counselor. Her husband's an engineer.
You taking any trips this fall?
Yeah, this fall I'll be in China for a couple weeks. I've got a few other trips planned. I think next month I'll be in the Dominican Republic, I think, if everything goes right. That's doing on a microfinance deal.
Okay. You started a thing called Agape Inventory, right?
I did.
Tell us the history of that. How'd that get started?
So I ran into a guy at a conference, it was a men's conference about pushing 5 years ago, and he was involved in something kind of similar to what I'm doing, but it's an entity that takes advantage of the IRS tax code 170E that allows major corporations to donate their corporate excess in exchange for a 200% tax receipt, which is a very big deal. Most major corporations that most that are super large already know about it and they utilize it, but the vast majority of corporations have no idea. It's tucked in the 40,000 pages of the tax code, and CFOs and CEOs just don't even know about it. So basically, they donate their corporate excess to us, and then we liquidate that product, and we have to use it for the ill, the needy, or children. It says infants, but it means children under the age of 19. So it has to move into not-for-profits, the money does.
So it started about when?
So
You get introduced.
we started that 4 years ago.
Okay.
The first 2 years, basically, we were kind of battling the United States government, just trying to, with the IRS, trying to get a letter of determination. And so it literally took us almost 2 years, and Congresswoman Ann Wagner finally kind of made a congressional inquiry, and she got it opened up so that we could, I think you're in there. So she got it kind of opened up, and we got a letter of determination. And then we started in, at that point, basically chasing big companies to get their donation.
So that went on for 2 or 3 years, kind of gradually growing, learning.
Right.
And then doors started opening, didn't they?
So doors started opening. The first major door that we got is a company called Meyer. They're out of the north. It's a family-owned, $17 billion company that is basically the exact same thing as Walmart Superstore. They're literally laid out identical. So we began to work a deal with them. They have about 125 million a year in overstocks that they need to unload. And so we started getting their product into our warehouse. We moved from a few thousand square feet to now we're in 100,000 square feet, actually not too far from here.
Really?
Right.
Well, where's that all gonna go?
So it goes in different areas. Part of it will go directly to a 501c3 that actually needs that product. If we can match it, we will literally give them that product. But a great deal of it we're going to use in microfinance in the third world. So like I said, I'm going to the Dominican Republic. That's following about a container that has about $700,000 worth of shoes and clothing in it. And so basically we work with a local ministry in Santo Domingo that we know and trust, and they work with poor people, and they, rather than giving cash on a microfinance deal like Hope International or Opportunity would do, we're giving them stuff that they would literally take to the market. They would sell that product, and then they would keep a percentage of it. So they're going from an income of $30 to probably $600-800 a month in income, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot there. It's life-changing. So this is, in almost every case, we're working with women that take care of children. And so now it literally changes their life. It changes the life of their children. They can rent a home. They can buy the proper food that they need. So it's a game changer for these people. So I'm super excited about it.
What's the potential?
So the potential's big. The Hope International, as an example, they loan $40 million a month in microloans at $200 a crack. And literally 99% of who they're loaning to are women with children. And they loan it with interest. They have interest has to be paid back, so there's skin in the game. 98% of the women pay back their loan on time with interest. So we're basically doing the same thing. We're just doing it with stuff. So we're kind of taking the middleman out. I loan you $200, you have to go buy stuff to resell. So now I'm giving you the wherewithal to go straight to the market and develop an income literally on day one.
You were telling me about some business outside of Chicago. Back to the food thing, hit that a little.
So, you know, I started this thing thinking we're gonna do hard goods. I never, ever had the idea that I would ever do anything with food. I worked with Convoy of Hope out of Springfield, Missouri, one of the greatest institutions in our state. They feed 85,000 women and children per day, and I'll sing their praises till the day I die. They're an absolutely wonderful group run by a friend of mine named Hal Donaldson. So anything that came in as food, we would send it their direction. It just wasn't what we do. We didn't have the warehousing set up for it. And so we started meeting with Meijer, and Meijer came along and basically about a couple of months ago, they summoned me up for a meeting. I had a meeting with some pretty interesting people, and they basically laid out, hey, we want to give you our stuff, but they kind of used that as dangled a carrot in front of me. They said, we have a problem and we think you can solve that problem. And I'd already been prepped a little ahead of time what that problem was. So, and that is their perishable goods. There's such large quantities. They have 20 distribution centers, each of which is 1 million square feet. Inside that 1 million square feet, about 200,000 or so is refrigerated and freezer. So as product comes in there, it gets sorted, and then it goes to each of their stores from there. So product that is not, that's perfectly good product, if it doesn't make the cut, if it's not pretty, if the banana's the wrong shape, it's too long, it doesn't look good on the shelf, it never makes it to the store. It's literally discarded. And the quantities are too large for pantries, and pantries don't deal with refrigeration. They really need more canned goods and things like that. And so almost 100% of their overage there that doesn't make the cut goes to the dump. So, which produces greenhouse gas. So the last presidential administration basically got some laws passed that really prohibit and reduce greenhouse gases. So one of the biggest producers of greenhouse gases is food waste. So by the year 2020, in most states, you will not be able to take that food to the dump anymore. If you do, the fines will be significant. So now they're all looking for a source where they can dump this food. So I just happen to be a source that I can give them a 200% tax receipt, and now I can potentially take their food. So how we're going to do this, I started investigating. When I found out what they were going to kind of ask me to do, I thought this is kind of an interesting thing. I wasn't planning on this, but it's significant. And then I started checking around, and every major corporation that deals with food has the exact same problem. And they're all taken to the dump, and they're all scrambling trying to find a partner to take it before 2020. So I'm, you know, being in real estate, I've got a lot of real estate friends around the country, so I'm talking to a friend of mine that has a lot of large real estate holdings, and he said, hey, we just shut down a plant up in Michigan, north of Chicago, and we had a guy come and talk to us that has a patent on a machine that is a form of a dehydrator. And he said, there's nothing like it in the world. I said, okay, tell me about that. That's pretty interesting. So then I get the guy's contact information, I go visit him, and he's got a very specialized machine. It's 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot. It'll actually fit into a food grade tractor trailer. And basically with no heat at all, you can run food through it and literally turn the food into dry powder, into food grade, bacteria free food powder. Okay, that got me really excited.
I think everybody got one of those, didn't they?
Yeah, so there's nobody in the space doing it anywhere in the world. There's a few dehydration companies, but they do small quantities. They sell it to companies like GNC, and you can buy it on the internet and things like that. So I realized that we were onto something big here, and I felt like God was kind of lining all this stuff up. And so I presented to Meijer this program, and they're all over it. They're like, okay, how can we work together, what can we do, how quick can we work together. So they'd like me to put together a plant up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And basically what we'd start doing is we would take just kind of a starter. We've actually ordered 2 machines. They're $650,000 each. They're on a food grade tractor trailer. We can back right up to the refrigerated dock, and we can process food right there on their dock into powder that'll go into food grade totes that will store for 5 years dry. It's almost perfectly dry. Yeah, go ahead.
So are you talking about produce or meat
So
or milk?
all of the above. So each individual thing will get run separately. So like I was in their warehouse 3 or 4 months ago, and like they might have at a time, they might have say 10,000 pounds of blueberries at a time every time we would go, or a month. And so we would, maybe the blueberries are just a little shriveled a little bit. They're still good, but they don't look good. They don't look perfect. So basically we would run those through. Blueberries sell on the open internet at $68 a pound for the powder. Each machine will make 700 pounds of powder per hour. Per hour. Blueberries, strawberries, all of the above.
And then so what are the plans for distributing that powder
So-
product to third world countries,
So,
US?
right, so basically, I'm not gonna recreate the wheel. I wanna work with existing groups like Convoy of Hope, World Vision, and basically distribute the product to them as a humanitarian product. Now, some of it we will need to sell to propagate ourselves, and a lot of the fruits and vegetables have a big, big market. There's a lot of people that want this stuff. We've got powder companies, food powder companies that buy it, calling us from all over saying, hey, we've heard about you. We've got companies that do recycling saying, hey, we want to buy all your plastics, all the food grade plastics that you're going to discard. We want to buy that from you. There's a ton of money in that. I had no idea. So, you know, it just keeps snowballing into people that want this stuff. Now, milk and meat are kind of a little bit of a different animal, and we're talking about significant quantities. They pull stuff when it gets fairly close to expiration, because nobody wants to take cheese or yogurt home and a week later it's expired. Okay, so they pull it well before that. But even after the expiration date, food is still well good for a very long time, sometimes even months later. So basically on food and meat products, we will turn that into powder that will strictly be used for humanitarian purposes. It will not be sold. That'll go to the third world. So I've got a friend that has a flavor company in Chicago, one of the largest flavor companies in the world, and basically he's offered to flavor all of my powder ethnically. So if food is going to Somalia, we can figure out what flavors they like, and we can flavor that food so that they will like it and enjoy it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Do you know anything about the technology of this black
So,
box?
so I do. So these are all good questions. So the technology really was devised for the industrial, but the guy that has it and has the patents on it basically has morphed it into the food industry. And what it is it's a machine that takes the product in, and without using any heat whatsoever, it has a sonic blaster with a 200 horsepower motor that creates sound. And it blasts it into this chamber, and basically sound, kind of similar to a microwave, but at a lot more intensity, blasts this food and removes all of its moisture. And then it grinds it. When it comes out the other end, it's like sugar. I mean, maybe a little bit bigger pellets than sugar. And so, and like blueberries come out blue or purplish. Strawberries come out red. But it does not kill any of the nutrients, but it does kill all of the bacteria. Nothing can survive the process.
Okay, so the moisture is released into the air? Or
It
like
is.
toxicity
There's
things
zero.
associated with that?
There's zero.
This is like the Jetsons. I mean, you can, you know,
Yeah.
put something in and get pancakes out.
Actually, the water that comes out, we're in talks right now with Costco, with their global
Can you
sustainability.
capture that moisture?
So Costco, they don't want to vaporize it and let it go into the atmosphere. They want to capture it. They're so green, Costco is, they don't throw anything away. They said, we want to capture that water and bottle it. Well, they're also, you know, I'm dealing with them in the state of California, which is, you know, a little crazy on all the EPA, and even though it's completely pure water, it's like reverse osmosis, it's that clean. They don't want to let it into the atmosphere, they want to capture it.
Why not?
So, yeah,
They have water problems in California.
I get it. So, I mean, it'll take a little more work to capture, but that's okay.
So what do you see when you look in your crystal balls related to this?
So I see it growing. So we've had just recently calls from the top people at Publix, Kroger, Costco, and Target, that they want to learn what they can and see if they can get on board. They all have the exact same problem. So they go to these food conferences. There was just one last week. I had one of my fellows at in Chicago, and they're all crying the blues, telling the same story, you know, and sitting at round tables saying, what are we going to do with this stuff? You know, they've come up with the craziest ideas to get around the government. You can't take it to the dump. So what one company has done is they've devised a gigantic blender. They call it a slurry machine. And this is even worse than anything you could even do. And basically they throw all the goods into this gigantic blender, and plastic and all, and they just chunk it, add water, chunk it into liquid, and run it down the drain. That's what they're doing, you know, to try to avoid the taxation or the fines of going to the dump. That'll get caught, that'll get stopped. But I think once, you know, we get up and running and we get a little notoriety in this field, I think more and more groups will want to do exactly what we're doing. I'm sure there'll be other companies that'll pop out of the woodwork doing what we're doing, but I've kind of got the edge on this particular machine for doing food only. If you're going to do food with this machine, you're going to go through me to do it. So, you know, but I'd like to see it in every major chain in the world, so that, or in this country and even in the world, I'd like to see it spread, because there is actually enough food in the world without question to feed everybody well. The problem that we have is governments and logistics. Governments being the biggest problem. Just because I have food powder that can feed people in Ethiopia, I have to go through the president's wife in Ethiopia, and I have to pay her, okay, to feed people. I have to pay her a lot of money. So it's problems like that that, you know, make what I do difficult. And so, you know, I don't really plan, I never plan to be in the food business, and, you know, I'm, you know, looking for good people to join in with to grow this thing. I don't even want to run it, to be honest with you. I just want to be the fisherman to go get it. I like doing that. I want to find other people that will run it. I'm in talks with the president of a major corporation here in town. He's actually considering retiring from his job to run this.
Wow.
So, and, you know, we've got some sports figures that have now kind of, you know, we're talking to now, they're pretty interested in maybe joining in with us to help us get more notoriety.
How can we as a group be the most help? For example, we got Hills Angel in Milwaukee doing about $350 million a year in frozen pizza. So he's doing, would he be?
Sure, so that could turn into, you know, there's a lot of waste that would come from that, that, you know, is not bad, and that product could be vaporized. You know, I've spent a lot of my life in the third world, not just South America, but in Africa, building buildings and doing humanitarian projects. If you're around hungry people, you know, they're not asking for food from Deerbergs, okay? They're trying to survive, and, you know, I really didn't plan to go here, but this is some of my thoughts. When you work in a third world country, if you take a child that's 2 or 3 years of age that's been malnourished, if you begin to feed them at that point, feed them properly, the proper nutrition, the damage is already done. Okay, their brain, the development of their brain is already stunted at that point. If we can get them food, and even if it's powder, at a younger age, you know, and feed the mother that's breastfeeding this child, you can take a village, a town, a city, a region, a country, or a continent, and literally change its intellectual capital. You know, I mean, when you get into some of these poor areas, you can see that some of these people, you know, that they've been malnourished so long, mentally they are compromised. They're good people and they're absolutely wonderful people. And Africa is one of my favorite places to be in the world, but, you know, their potential got limited by nothing they did on their own, okay? And in many cases, it was their own government that caused it. But if we can get to them younger and feed them, you know, I just gotta believe that in 20 or 30 years, just by the brain power that they will excel with, they could help change their village or their world, you know? And so, why would we not do that? Why would we not try to help these people in that manner? So now, you know, I never planned on doing food. Now, it's almost all I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with these people all over the country. They're saying, who, what, when, where, and how. How can we be involved? How can we help? How can we give you our product? You know, Kroger, you're looking at a couple of $1 billion in product alone that they're dumping. Well, I'm not set up for that yet. I mean, that's a major, major scale to do that. Like right now, you know, with a couple of machines, I could do probably 30 or 40 million a year. That's just enough to do a testing with Meijer. I need 30 or 40 machines alone just for Meijer, just to take care of their quantity. Kroger, you'd need 200 or 300 machines. I don't even know, you know, at this point. But it's something that it has to get a start, and I think this is it. You know, I think that, you know, there'll be other groups that'll join in. There's other types of dehydration equipment, whatever, but you know, because they go through me, I'm a 501c3, they get the 200% tax receipt. That's the other reason why they want to give it to me before any for-profit operation.
So we've got semi-professional, but videographer, videotaping us, Steve Denny, but you're having this professionally for video, right?
Yeah, so I'm working on
To
with
get
a
the
group.
word out, how we share this.
Right.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when are you going into production?
So we ordered the machines, but the company that produces the machines actually produces them for other industries, and so they have a production schedule, they have other orders before us. They're telling us they think that we could have a couple of machines maybe before the end of the year, but they're not promising. So, you know, they've got lots of orders from other industries, so,
What are the other uses for it?
oh my gosh.
And what if, I'm just thinking, I hope people don't put like people in there or anything.
So you can put literally almost anything in there
Yeah,
and
that's,
turn it into powder. It's insane. So
you could use that for overcrowded graveyards, you know, I mean.
you could. And what's interesting about the machine is, and I don't really tell people this very often, but I can take literally rotten meat and put in there, and it will turn it into pure protein powder. And it's bacteria-free and virus-free. So, I mean, like, you could put, from a stockyard, you could put dead cattle in there. It'll strip it. I can take product with plastic, I can take yogurt in the plastic containers. There's no way to strip that off and dump it in. You dump it in this machine, it will shred it, cold press, crush it, squeeze everything out, discard the plastic, and then process the milk products into powder.
You're making that up.
I am not making it up. I'll actually have a video to show you. We're working on right now. It's beyond belief. It was actually devised for the coal industry. They put coal in it, and then they blasted the coal into powder. These coal plants that Ameren uses, they don't burn coal, they burn coal powder. And they infuse it with oxygen, and it's more combustible and it's more efficient. So they use this machine to bust coal into powder, and then the carpet mills use it to take used carpet and basically blast it and turn carpet back into pelletized synthetic material that they can re-extrude. The fish industry uses it in Alaska. This machine, there's a lot of them in Alaska. They use it for fish carcasses. After the salmon have been filleted, rather than throw those out, they run the carcasses through. It's basically the most pure protein you can get on Earth, the most pure. And they sell that to GNC and places like that. So I can run wood through it and turn it into, basically into black soil when it's done. Powdered like potting soil. Yes, sir?
Two obvious questions. Why doesn't Publix, Kroger's, Target do this themselves? Why don't they?
So a lot of them have tried. They've tried with other dehydrators. The problem with dehydration is it takes a plant up till now. It always took a plant, a lot of space, a lot of energy, okay? And so they would farm it out to different groups to try to do it, and everyone that I've found out about, they all failed. Just the cost, the logistics of moving it, where now I can do it on their dock, they don't actually have to move it. So,
Why can't they buy that machine and do it themselves?
and so some of them have actually inquired about that. And I'm not opposed to that, but they're gonna have to go through me to do it. And so, you know,
But they won't get the tax credit though.
so they have to go through me to get a tax credit. And so we've talked to a couple of other groups that wanna do it. Basically, they donate the product to us, we'd get a percentage of it and not even process it, they would process it. Okay, and then, but I want it to be used for humanitarian, not for lining somebody's pocket.
Do you have the patent on these machines?
Pardon me?
Do you have the patent on it, is that what they have to go through?
So I don't have the patent, that another man has the patent, but he's sold me the rights to use the machine for food only. He has other industries that he sells a lot of machines to, but food only, I've got the rights to that. Yes, sir.
I mean, I think the third world country thing is great, but what about locally?
Yeah, there's a lot
So
of things
absolutely,
here.
you know, there's a lot of ways the product can be used. Some of it could be donated whole, okay, without even vaporizing it. But, you know, I'm gonna run into the exact same problems that the big stores are gonna run into. If I've got a 250,000 square foot refrigerated warehouse, you know, and I got people coming in trying to pick through saying, well, I need, you know, 5 boxes of bananas, you know, it'd just be very difficult. So I don't know that we're gonna go that route. You know, I mean, I'd be glad to give it to some food pantries. Canned goods, any kind of canned goods, we'd give straight to groups like Convoy of Hope and World Vision, because they can move that stuff. They have the deals, the logistics to get it out there that I don't have at this point.
Amazing, isn't it? Unbelievable. I gave Tina this morning a book, the telomeres, about your telomeres. It's gonna change. In 10 years, you go every month and get a shot. You live twice as long and healthier. It's breakthrough stuff. It's happening in a lot of different areas, so. Really appreciate you sharing. Anything about health you wanna talk about?
I'm blessed.
Okay.
I'm blessed. I had a broken leg and it's pretty well healed now. Had a few colds and things like that, but nothing to set me back.
Okay. Let's hear it for Jay Peters.
Pardon me? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna scoot.
This is the kind of thing you can't get your arms around in potential. You know, Keith Ferrazzi said, if you live 20 years, you'll live forever.